Good day, everyone. Just a quick feedback, quite a bit of jumping on your discussion one, looking at assessment and evaluation. And what is your understanding of assessment and evaluation, and what type of experiences have you had with assessment and evaluation? And what I liked about this discussion was the fact that so many persons were able to share their experience, as that is what the question wanted. It wanted us to look at how have we experienced assessment and evaluation as students ourselves, as educators. Some of us are educators ourselves, lecturers, sessionals, and how we participated in the process. As a matter of fact, not just in education, but in other fields of assessment and evaluation. So one thing we want to get clear is that the words are used interchangeably in many situations. So many persons says, I'm going to do an assessment, I'm going to do an evaluation. You know, are they the same? We said yes, we move on with our lives. And in many spaces, and that's what I think we have to get, is that we can't be so hung up on being correct in our space, because in many individual spaces, these words are indeed used interchangeably. However, we want to take this opportunity as a formal course to really differentiate assessment from evaluation in an educational space. Okay, so sometimes somebody said, I go into an assessment, I am going for an evaluation. It's the same thing. I want to see what's going on. I want to see how I'm progressing. I'm going to see what's happening so I can get feedback. I can make judgment. I can change. But let's look at this from our educational point of view. So assessment and evaluation, they both require certain criteria. They both measure, and they both are evidence driven. We have to present something to show something, to decide on something. But assessment, we want to look at assessment as ongoing, as providing ongoing feedback. You're checking in. That's the assessment, right? And I always think about, if you bake, I used to like baking, and every time you open the oven to check on it, you're assessing, is it ready? Is it ready? Evaluation, as we said, the taste is in the proof of the pudding is in the eating. That's when we cut a slice and we say to someone, take a piece, let me tell me how it is. And the person will say, it's done well, it's too soft, it's a little bit flaky, should have been stayed in the oven a lot. All of this is now closure and judgment. There is no putting back the cake in the pan and putting it back in the oven. We are now moving into assessment. So what we have had many times is that assessment can be at the beginning of a course and it's about progress. Most time with evaluation, it's at the end of a course, end of a unit, end of a session. As a matter of fact, if I graded this discussion today, I would have been giving you an evaluation of the discussion, because the discussion is ended. It's now the 28th. The discussion has ended, and now I'm giving you a grade if I was doing that, and it would have been an evaluation of your participation in the discussion. Now, if I looked at your work like I did to some people on last week, Wednesday, and I sent you a note to say, hey, you have not answered the question as yet. I noticed even that you didn't use any reference. I may say to you, remember you need to have sorry, 2 or 3 responses. I have only seen one. Sorry. That is me giving you an assessment. I am checking in. Okay. So it's formative and it's a progress report, right? So we talk about assessment for learning as something that is really, really important. So here's another thing. Sometimes we use assessment of learning, which is evaluation. Make note of that. Assessment of learning, which is evaluation. But most time we use the word assessment for learning. Okay, so with this, the power in assessment for learning is that it occurs during the teaching and learning process rather than after the teaching. So at this point, you can adjust, you can check, you can change, you can impact change, you can inspire change. So there are many examples, but I want to take just one example today. Jennifer's example, where she talked about a PhD student who is studying right, working on a thesis for over 3 to 4 years. In the assessment, she says, I see assessment as defined as ongoing. It improves the quality. You know, if you're doing a research, you give your professor chapter one. They give you feedback. You do chapter one over and you adjust it. You give them chapter two. They ask you to take out something, put in something, go and do another interview, support your ideas some more. It's ongoing. It's improved quality. It provides feedback. It's process oriented versus an evaluation. When you turn up to defend your thesis, it's done. It is done. At this point, we are providing you with judgment, quality, there are grades, they are closures to this one. We are congratulating you. You know, people are giving you a grade where it's a A plus, a B, whatever your grade is, or maybe even a failing grade. This is the evaluation. And I know sometimes people say, what if it's a failing grade? Then what happened during the assessment process? And I just want to take a minute to say, like in any other field, there are many people who do not apply the assessment feedback. So I've had students in this course who, for instance, in the peer review, they got quite a bit of feedback. They were told what was to be done in the peer review process. They were told what changes could have been made, ideas, and they did none of that. And so they got a low grade for the final evaluation project because the assessment was not taken into consideration. So not because you are given assessment means you're going to get an A at the end of evaluation, because persons sometimes do not take the feedback. I have had situations where I do research. I teach research at the University of Toronto, and I've had students who have given one-on-one assessment meeting. They don't show up. I have given a second assessment meeting. They don't show up. So there's no opportunity for that student to be given the progress report and the updates and the feedback. So at the end of the course, I have to do an evaluation. So sometimes we get carried away thinking, oh, if you do an assessment, then the evaluation always is an A. Absolutely not, because some persons don't even know what to do with the feedback, what to do with the assessment process. So I want us to think about that. So assessment for learning stems from the belief that assessment should represent more than a summative evaluation. And of course, those two words come into play again: formative evaluation, summative evaluation. So sometimes it's a matter of choice of words, okay? But what we want to know is that when we do assessment, someone is given feedback and provided opportunities to make things better, to improve, to grow. When we say evaluation, it's the end, it's a final deal, and we're moving on. So assessment for learning stems from that same belief. You know, learner and the teacher, the track and plan. We are working on a progress, we are working on an idea to move forwards. And I like this one about assessment. You know, this is another thing from your textbook. He suggests that rather than have assessment provide proof of learning, which is, of course, is evaluation, it should provide information for learning. So as we talk about, it has to do with timing. And then we're going to close this quick chat with summative assessment. It's high stakes. By the time it occurs, students have typically exited the learning mode, right? And example of this is, as we said, it's the summative assessment includes, you know, the chapter tests, the final test, the projects, the performance review, the final copies, sending in your final draft of something. Now we want an evaluation. We call it the summative assessment. So words are used in different ways: assessment for learning, assessment of learning, formative evaluation, summative evaluation, formative assessment, summative assessment, assessment and evaluation. So you know, we just want to be careful with the use of choice of words. Don't be so stuck on the choice of word. Be stuck on the process. Because I've had people write me to say, well, in my work, we say this. In my school, we say this. In my association, we say this. Words are that. What is the process behind formative, summative, assessment, evaluation, assessment for, assessment of? And I'm sure as we emerge, we are going to be having new terminologies to the fact. So let's not be hooked on a phrase, on a word, but let's be hooked on a process.